So you guys are doing good?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, good.
Deep breath. Deep breath. You're doing good too.
It's always so nerve-wracking.
Yeah, it's nerve-wracking. She just published her book the end of October, basically. It's the first book reading stuff, so
There you go.
she's brand new to all this.
Yeah,
So yeah, no,
you're an inspiration.
well, this is amazing.
Yeah.
It's been hard work. It's, but it's, I don't know. The writing has been fun for me to just put the ideas on the page. So it's kind of cool to be able to see the finished product, I guess. Yeah, and it's weird to be able to just hold it and be like, hey.
And see your name on it.
Exactly.
Yeah, and her words in the book.
Yeah.
And who did the cover for the chapter for you?
So one of my really good friends did the art,
Mhm.
so that, and then I published through Freezing Press because I wanted to do the I wanted to do self-publishing so that I would have the
Right.
the rights to make artistic decisions, I guess, because so often do they lose those artistic options when you go through a normal publisher. So I wanted to make sure that I had complete control over everything so I could decide where I wanted to take the book rather than have somebody else decide that. So, yeah. So it's been good, and they were really great to work with, so that was awesome. So, yeah. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. 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 There you go. There you go. You have to go into the digital age now when you're doing publishing, unfortunately. So that's always tough to do.
Self-marketing.
Yes, exactly.
Another 3 minutes.
Yeah, for sure. I can be patient.
Nine, 7 o'clock.
Can you give an idea without, I don't know, or if it's too personal, then of course not. What type of money does it take to publish your own book?
So for me, for the length of the book, it was about 5,000 plus to go through the whole process of publishing and everything. So it was a little bit more than I had anticipated a little bit, but I chose the timing of me publishing was because I was financially stable and this is what I wanted to do. And it was, I chose to start publishing a month before I found out I was pregnant. So I ended up having, I ended up going through the publishing process, pregnant, giving birth, and then having to do editing while I'm dealing with a newborn baby. So that was always fun. So yeah.
Who does all your proofing?
So I did the proofreading, and then they did through the publisher that I went through. They have an editor, they have a suggestion person, so they were the first step to go through, and then they do an editor, and then I'm doing all of it with them. So basically, they would read it, they would give me suggestions or edits, and then I would just correct the ones that I wanted to correct or change, right? So they suggested certain characters or anything like that. Hi, guys. Yes, I will put an inscription and sign it for you when it's done.
Where's your mom and dad?
They're looking after the baby. Yeah. So. Go ahead,
Yeah,
for sure.
That comes with the price, right?
Well, thank you for coming tonight, everyone. We welcome you here this evening to listen to Janelle Soto, her first reading of her new book, The Egyptian Heir. So we're quite excited to have her here this evening and look forward with anticipation to her book launch. So as you heard, Janelle's a Saskatchewan author. She began writing at age 13 to improve reading and writing skills, and then she fell in love with it. And now it's her passion. This is, again, her first novel, first in a trilogy, I believe, which I am so excited about because when I was that age, I wanted to become an archaeologist.
Oh, that's awesome.
So I was so excited to find out about your book. She lives with her husband Sean and a new baby,
Yeah.
and she has some very nice. What kind of reptiles? So we're just looking forward to hearing you read from your novel, Janelle, and I'll just let you take it away.
Sounds great. Thank you.
Let's give her a hearty welcome.
I'm a little nervous. Yeah, so this is my first read through for my book, so I've never done that, so bear with me. It's scary to finally talk about it and have it out in public. It's exciting but scary at the same time because I've had these words in my head for so long. It's The Egyptian Heir was the book that actually got me into writing, and it helped me go through the steps that I needed to be able to learn how to read and write to an extent that I was able to go to university and complete university and be able to feel comfortable with writing pretty much anything, right? So it's very exciting to finally have the characters and the people, the characters and the story out in public type thing. So that's very exciting. So I'm going to read the prologue to you guys really quickly, just so that you guys kind of have an idea of where the Egyptian Heir is starting off at, and then I'll talk about it a little bit more, and then I'll answer any questions if you guys have any questions. So, yeah. Okay. So, 5 millennia ago, an Egyptian kingdom flourished under the careful guidance of the pharaoh Oboco. Droughts and floods were non-existent, and the people maintained full bellies with lush, prosperous farmland. Wars raged around them, yet no invaders broke through Egypt's borders, and the inhabitants were lulled into peace. Oboco reigned by commanding the power of 7 diamonds that controlled otherworldly abilities. He was a just and fair man, and he used his extraordinary gifts to benefit his country. The diamonds were a well-entrusted secret that few knew of. He long foresaw that the elitists of Egypt would demand for unnecessary wants rather than care for their low-status freedmen. He instead sought to bring happiness to his entire country, as to not fall victim to man's natural greed. Many questioned his abilities and wondered how the good fortune was obtained, but Oboco entrusted the secret of the diamonds to only a handful of people, including his wife Hehiba. Oboco married Hehiba after disregarding his advisor's warnings and removing her from her bondage of slavery and bringing her into the world of riches and royalty. Oboco was so enthralled with his undying love for her that within months of marriage, Hehiba was told of the secrets of the diamonds. He would regret this in the following years. Years of magnificent harvests fed his people and lessened the need for raising arms. Egypt found itself in a pensive state, but it would not last once Hehiba mistakenly informed the slaves of Oboco's fantastic feats. During a visit at her family's poor village, she celebrated their reunion by drinking red wines and chattering the night away of how her husband had provided for his people. Unaware of her betrayal, Hehiva woke to find a rampaging crowd of unpleased slaves. They demanded for the queen to retell the story of Obako's magical diamonds. Each word was stuttered as Hehiva explained Obako's secrets. An uproar of shouts disturbed the lands when the news traveled throughout all regions of Egypt. A rift had been created when the slaves began to believe Obako used the diamonds to unnaturally control the lands and promote the elites rather than sparing anything for the slaves. They misunderstood Hehiva's fondness towards the man who sacrificed his own pleasures to better the rest of Egypt. Hehiva scurried home to alert Obako of the disaster soon to arrive. The pharaoh of old was disappointed with the obvious betrayal of his wife and subjects. In desperation to make peace, he came before his people and explained that the reason for their lack of poverty or malicious war mongrels was the diamonds. With the outrage already thick in their veins, none listened to the pharaoh's honest words. Instead, a great war erupted, spilling the blood of his suddenly disloyal people. Obako's most devoted fought bravely, but the slaves made up for their untrained skills with numbers. The war split the land into two. Egypt collapsed into turmoil, and all of Obako's precise calculations to avoid civil war had suddenly become a volcano of hatred. The war ended with Obako making a final push to eliminate the leaders of the faction which corrupted his ideals. The state of his land by the end of it brought tears to the pharaoh's eyes as the death count had risen higher than ever before in all his years as ruler. Without mercy, he executed the punishable, and when the time came for Hehiva's final verdict, she pleaded and begged her husband to spare her life and allow her to explain her accidental betrayal. Without a sign of remorse, Obako banished her from Egypt to live out her days as a slave. She lost the grip of her son's clutching fingers and heard her daughter's cries. She was hauled away. Obako beckoned his children to his side, explaining the reasons for her dismissal, and then led them into the caverns of his temple. Their first sight of the glistening mystical diamonds brought a longing to their innocent eyes. Obako denied them any involvement with the diamonds. Instead, he forced them to swear to bury all 7 diamonds inside his tomb with him when he passed. Holding their small palms, he described the curse he wished for them to place on the tomb. Whoever enters this tomb and is not heir to the diamond's powers will surely die. When the heir is revealed, they will be able to control the diamonds as they wish. The pharaoh passed into the everlasting 3 years later, and as they promised, Obako's children dutifully placed the curse upon the enclosed tomb. Along with the sacred diamonds, Obako still awaits with his heir, or for his heir. Hey. So that's the prologue. So that just explains a little bit of where the story kind of goes. It's mainly about Cassandra, who is a teenager who her grandfather was the one that was just explaining that story to her. And as she grows up, she kind of forgets about the story, but it starts to come back when she starts to meet, or when she meets Zach. So, yeah. Did you guys have any questions? Anything?
Do you usually write the prologue first, or is that the last thing you write after you write your book?
So for this one, the very first thing that I wrote was the prologue. In some other stories, it has been other sections as ideas kind of pop out, essentially. In the second and third Egyptian Heir in the series, I started off writing like sections of it, and then I would compile them all together and get them all going. So, yeah.
And were the characters inspired by anybody else?
So there are characters that are broadly built off of people. So her one brother, Vince, he has issues with alcoholism. I've had a few friends, and I've dealt with that a little bit in the past, obviously, but in the past I've dealt with that. So he deals with that because tragically at the very beginning, Cassandra's parents end up dying in a car accident from a drunk driver, and Vince decides that his way of coping is through drinking. And then I have a bad guy character, Buddy, who is a counselor or tends to be a counselor. He is loosely based on a friend who I trusted quite severely when I was younger and then was betrayed by them. So he's loosely related to that.
The process of publishing a book, do you write it in sections and others or whoever's publishing it proofreads for you, or how does that process work basically?
Yeah, so I self-published, so I wanted to keep control of the artistic choices from that. So basically, I wrote the manuscript, and then I sent it in to them. They had a suggestion person who talked to me about how I can make the story even better by correcting a character's like behavior or even like adjusting certain things in the story just to make it flow better.
Mm-hmm.
And then total options to choose what I wanted to keep and what I wanted to get rid of, right? And so then an editor looked at it after I went through all of that, and the editor went through it twice. So once, and then I corrected all the issues, and then there was another one, and then and then it was just me proofreading at the end. So I have read this book at least 8 times since I started publishing last October. So yeah. Yeah, but yeah, it's.
So a general reaction, was that a very helpful, very kind of necessary process? And do you feel you have a better product now than you would have had?
Most definitely, yeah, because things that I didn't think about, like obviously Cassandra is a teenager and there's a scene that a boy grabs her and kisses her without consent, right? So with something like that, I never thought about that, right? That's a scene that's been in my book since the very beginning. And I was like, oh, okay. And they mentioned that, oh, well, maybe you should have one of your characters mention like, hey, that wasn't right. Because obviously consent is very important for that type of thing. So those are the type of things that I was going through my head, or something might have been said that one character might not say, but another character might say. So I could just change that, the speech up or something. So yeah, so it was very informative because me reading it so many times and seeing the words over and over and over again, it's it's tough for somebody to see it as a person that didn't know what the full plot is at the very beginning, right? So it made it a lot more coherent to the general public. Yeah.
Did the character speak to you at some stage when you were writing the book?
So Cassandra kind of just appeared. I was always getting frustrated with how I wasn't able to read and write I wasn't able to do math, but that's always a problem. But I always had ideas in my head, and I wanted to try and so Cassandra kind of popped into my brain one day, and then the diamonds kind of appeared, and I was like, oh, that's really cool. And I've always been a fanatic about ancient Egypt, ancient Greece, all of the medieval type stories, type things. So it kind of just flowed from there, and Cassandra kind of became a big part of my life, and she kind of branched into 3 books and has always been kind of around. So yeah, so she's probably talked to me a little bit, but she's definitely been a big part in being able to focus. And I use a lot of my experiences in life in my storytelling. So there's a point when her and Zach's bullying her a lot, and she doesn't beat him up, but she defends herself with self-defense. And I had a bully when I was younger that I punched right in the nose because I was fed up with it. So I use that type of scenario that, yeah, so I try to use that a lot.
Is there a reason you chose now to publish the book?
It was mainly because I'm financially stable now. I was able to, because I did do self-publishing, so obviously there's a cost with self-publishing. I decided to do it because I had the money for it. I felt confident enough that I would allow somebody to read my book. I've never allowed anyone to read any of my books. So it takes a lot of to read something that you've put your heart and soul into. And I hope that I have a thicker skin, because obviously there's always going to be people that like it and people that don't. So I have to be able to handle the negativity and the positive as well, right? And I think that the biggest thing was that I came to terms with, as long as one person likes the story, then it's a successful book in the long run. So, yeah. Yes.
How did you get the title of the book?
So that is the title of the book. The day that I wrote down the prologue, like the very first day, that was the title that popped into my head. So that's been the title ever since I put pen to paper and started writing. So yeah, it's never changed. And titles, for some reason, like for all my books are titled. They just pop into my head as soon as the story is kind of started, and then that's how it is. So yeah.
How many books have you written? So you have a trilogy?
So I've got this trilogy, and all in all, I've got 9 books on the go, including the Egyptian Heir, but I guess that one's done now. So 1 done and 8 to go. But yeah, I've been just writing. And obviously the trilogy is, the other 2 books are complete. I'm just doing editing stage now. So yeah. Yeah. So yeah. And writing for a long time, and it definitely has helped with my reading and writing skills. So I definitely encourage people to just get those ideas on paper, and even if it sounds horrible at the very beginning, it definitely gets better and easier as it goes. So, so yeah.
What happened to the characters after?
So the characters all go through different stuff. Obviously, the Egyptian Heir. The main point of the book is they're trying to figure out who the heir is. They hint a lot on Cassandra being the heir, but I'm not going to spoil that ending. But They definitely grow and develop, especially Cassie, Cassandra. Her nickname is Cassie, so it jumps a lot in the book from Cassandra to Cassie. So Cassie, she starts off as like a very angry teenager because she's just lost her parents. She has to move from Edmonton to Saskatoon to go live with her brothers, Michael, Brant, and Vince. And she gets bullied at school and everything like that. But throughout the book, she starts to figure out herself, essentially. She's coming to terms with herself, and the series, the characters are always supposed to be growing and learning. Zach starts off as a really horrible bully, and then it goes from there type thing. So, yeah.
Besides your own experience that helped you to, I guess, explain some of the characters in your book, did you have inspiration from a certain teacher, a relative, anybody like that, or from reading other books? Where did you develop your inspiration to start putting things on paper?
I don't know. I think like they kind of just appeared, like all these ideas, but I've always been a very creative child, and I was always thinking up ideas. Whenever I was really young, we'd be playing in the playground and make up these crazy games or whatever. So I think it was just my imagination, and once I was able to express it in some shape or form, like some people are artists, some people are musicians, people write, people do sports to express themselves. That can be, or dance, I guess, is a way to express yourself. So yeah, there's multiple ways to express yourself through anything, and as long as you have the mindset to go out and do it, I think that's the way to do it. But yeah, I didn't really have too many people. Like obviously, as I was writing, I would meet people that like to write and like to read, and then they would tell me, oh, I really like this character, like this is a really cool character, and then you're like, oh, well, that's a cool point, like maybe you can do that. But I don't think any of mine are my characters really based on any one or any other stories basis. So yeah.
And Janelle, have you read a lot of books to sort of see where your style of writing, like, because I know that I'm a poetry person.
Yeah.
And honestly, that I should, because then maybe it would make me go, oh, you think you know how to write poetry, but,
Yeah.
you know, like, have you based yours on that?
I've read a lot. I have a little library in the house. Obviously, any kid starts with like, well, in my day and age, it was the Harry Potter series when I started really reading. I used to read the series Unfortunate Events, the Inheritance series, a ton of them. The Inheritance series is probably one of the main ones that I actually decided that I would self-publish because he had done it, and people kept saying like, oh, your book isn't good enough or whatever, but he published 4, and then he ended up getting very successful through that, right? So you can definitely become successful with just publishing the way that you want to do it, which is good. But yeah, I've read a lot since I started, like when I did university, I didn't read very much, and I haven't read since I finished university just because life kind of catches up to you. So it's really hard to keep up with a relaxing state when everything in the world is not relaxing. So, but yeah. Any other questions? Do you guys want to hear one more reading and then we can go from there? Okay. So a little bit of background on this. So Cassie's just about to go into her first day of high school at the new school in Saskatoon. She has a friend named Rebecca who's a neighbor of her new house situation. So, yeah. And her parents have her parents had passed away 3 weeks ago, so she's still reeling through that. So she's a very emotional girl in this. So, a quick peek inside the loaded classroom found several rows of bench-like desks with 2 students at each. 12 stools held the students up as they prepared for a day of lectures. On the other end, kitchen stations were set up, enough for each bench to work as a pair with a single oven, counter space, and kitchen sink between them. She warily realized that one of the people inside this room would be her partner for the rest of the semester. "Hello there," an adult's voice spoke. "Are you new to my class?" Cassie jumped, startled that she was found while wavering on the thought of ditching class for the day. Nodding and handing over the crumpled piece of paper with her schedule printed on it, the teacher wrapped an arm over her shoulders, beckoning her to enter. "All right, class," he shouted over the chatter. "Sit down." The teacher clung securely to Cassie's shivering torso in front of the class. "We have a new student today. Please make her feel welcome." He tilted his head, calculating on where to place her. "Whose bench is open for another body?" The menacing boy rose a hand, twiddling his fingers about. The subtle muscles stretched from his forearm to his shoulders and tense, showing off to the girls. Cassie shuffled towards him when the teacher praised him for being honest and then went on with his lecture. Her butt plopped onto the wooden stool and she tucked her hands over one another. The boy swiveled towards her with his long legs that easily reached the floor where Cassie's toes barely touched without stretching. He leaned in close, giving Cassie a cruel expression. "What's your name, new girl?" Cassie tilted backwards in avoidance to being too close. "Screw off." A menacing frown helped show his true colors. "Excuse me, I asked you a question." The teacher rescued her from replying once he snapped at the twosome to focus on the lesson. Strictly ignoring the boy, she pulled out a notebook and began jotting down the food safety discussion. The boy sucked back his lips, chewing on them to show rebellion against the teacher's harsh tone towards him. The bell rang 15 minutes later. The students' cramped hands from speedy writing unfurled from their pens. Hopping off the bench, Cassie shoved her books into her backpack and hurried from the kitchen-like classroom to meet with Rebecca. The friend wildly waved and hurried to class to ask her how her first class went. However, something caused her to falter. Twisting only her head, Cassie caught sight of the menacing boys group hunkered in a corner, pointing and snickering at her. "You met Zach," Rebecca yelped. Cassie, unsure of who she met, said he never introduced himself. Rebecca towed Cassie far off into another hallway before they lingered too long to attract attention. "This isn't good. What did you say to him?" Nonchalantly, Cassie answered, "Screw off." Ghostly white terror filled Rebecca's freckled cheeks, realizing that Cassie apologized to her friend for being too hasty and making an enemy. She clutched Rebecca's palms and told her to relax and swiftly asked her to be led to the next class. With a task at hand, Cassie hoped that Rebecca's anxiety would fade. However, it only increased when Rebecca found herself trapped in the middle of a grisly scenario as Zach appeared with 4 of his brutish companions. Cassie barricaded Rebecca from the boy while she herself attempted to clear her mind before she overreacted. "You're exceptionally rude," Zach said. "All I asked was your name." The boys formed a circle to ensnare them in the barren hallway. "I don't give my name out." Zach stepped forward. Long legs were concealed inside baggy jeans that snugly clung to his waistline with a black belt. Rebecca bowed her head, unsure of how to dissuade the aggression. Zach snapped out a hand and snatched Cassie's wrist. She stumbled back, startled by the brutality as she struck the wall and felt his hand tighten as his anger escalated further. Let go of me. Rebecca lost sight of Cassie. The foursome of boys shoved her from Cassie's side. Her shrilled voice caused a headache. Cassie wanted peace and quiet, not this loud, obnoxious school that already corrupted her peace. I asked you what your name was. Don't be stuck up. He leaned closer, intimidating her lightly. I'll only ask once more. This time, I'm telling you, give me your name, and this may end now. Cassie snarled, and I'm telling you to let go. Zach gazed down his straight and narrow nose upon Cassie. His brunette hair concealed the vicious eyes flaring towards her. You're such a stuck-up, spoiled brat. When someone asks for your name, you give it. Annoyed with his arrogant personality, she retorted sassily, and you should really try to leave people alone when you have no inkling on what you're talking about. Riled up to the point of uncontrollable behavior, Zach rose his hand to strike Cassie's face. Rebecca shrieked loudly, unsure what to do. Cassie saw the scene in slow motion. His hand rose high above his head and curled into a firm fist. Behind him, his friends showed how fearful they were towards him as well. Rebecca begged them to stop their friend. All the while, they pulled her away and restrained her flailing limbs. The fist became an open hand, yet the slap never reached her cheek. She ducked low, still restrained by his hand, and dodged his tack. Before he could comprehend that she dodged it, she countered with her own fist and struck him beneath the ribs with a direct hit to his gut. He wheezed as he doubled over. His grip loosened, though Cassie thought he seemed trained in some form of martial arts because he took the strike well. Instead of wasting time on checking if he was finished, she gripped his wrist, using his own unbalanced position against him, and manipulated her foot between both of his to trip him to the ground. Coughing at her feet, Zach rested his head on the cool tiles, knowing when to give up. Without a threat from Zach's friend, Cassie gathered Rebecca and ushered her away from the attracting action. Holy shit, Rebecca mumbled, stunned by the events. You just beat up Zach. Thank you guys for coming. It was fun, nerve-wracking, but fun. And hopefully you guys enjoy.
Can we get our book signed?
Yeah, of course.
Thank Janelle again for coming and for her bravery in reading, and this is her first time out, and I just thank you again. Well done. I got your costume that you do. Anything else you would need to do?
I will send an email to Sharon. Thanks.
Take these waters with you.
Sure.
I'm gonna snip a couple more.
Yeah. Definitely.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Nice meeting you. Thank you.
You too.
It's nice to have this done.
For sure.
Good to know.
Oh, thank you.
I do have to get one to find out what happened to her.
Okay. You want a soft cover or hardcover?
Soft cover.
Soft
Because
cover.
we still have to get your books.
How do you pay for it?
You can either e-transfer or I can pay cash.
E-transfer.
Yeah, okay. Okay. I can give you my email.
Sure.
25.
I did not know that you were well on the way to 2 and 3. I just assumed you finish one and you have readings and you get it rolling and next year you start number
I
2.
wanted to get them all done before I published because the way that the editing was going was, well, I knew that the editing would be like, oh, well, this doesn't make sense, but I'm like, oh, but it does when you read on. So yeah, so I wanted to make sure that it was all done and everything. So yeah.
Congratulations, girl.
Thank you. Oh, good.
take it with us if we ever go further.
Oh, good.
Yeah, do that soon as well, okay? Is that all right?
Yeah, oh, yeah,
Okay, definitely, yeah,
You know where I
live.
Okay, you guys
I
got
already
this
got one.
guy, yeah. Yes.
See you, sir.
He did send me,
Is there different types?
Enjoy that.
Hardcover
so this is a
and stuff?
hardcover, we bought a hardcover.
Okay,
Yeah,
sure.
yeah. Did you want me to put any inscription in there or
Actually,
just sign it?
okay, so you know Phoenix is our oldest, and
Yeah.
she loves writing.
Oh,
So maybe
good.
make it to Phoenix.
Okay.
PHOP. What would you say to her to inspire? She's kind of like you. She doesn't want it. She's just starting to let me read
Oh,
that she's written. It's very nerve-wracking for her. Before she'd be like, never.
yeah, it's scary. You kind of have this
Yeah, it's
voice in the
very
back of your
scary.
head that you're like, I don't
She's
want.
starting to a little bit to get a bit of confidence.
Good. Yeah, I always want that.
How old is she?
She's 16. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. So she took creative writing at St. Mary's. She got 100 in the class.
Yay!
Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, yeah. Carleton, when I was in high school, they never had
Any of those
the
kind of
creative
classes?
writing or
Yeah.
anything, and it was sad because it was like
Yeah,
the biggest
she
school in
loved
the city.
it.
Like, how can you guys
Yeah.
not have that? But yeah.
She came up with these short stories, which I said like could become a book. They were pretty kind of freaky.
Yeah.
That's her style. Yeah.
Cool. Okay. Well, that's good to know. Like John's niece started writing, and she was so excited when I was like, I've struggled, and she's like, I've been struggling too. And I was like, oh, keep going. You got this.
9 books.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, not all of them are done, but it's definitely.
You can have one done. And people in a lifetime maybe think it, but never follow through.
Yeah, and my one of my great grandpas, he had written a bunch of stories, and he never got them published, and they're just all sitting in this box, and nobody's ever read his work because he used to have very shorthand and stuff. I've read
it's
a
hard.
few, but he wrote in shorthand, and it's
Shorthand is like your breathing things.
yes.
So really hard to follow. Yeah, like a long time ago, people would write in shorthand to dictate. So instead of like somebody would type really fast or record it. So we're going to rush off. Wetmore, of course, has homework. And Fiona tells
No,
us
that's
this,
okay.
like, as
Thank
we're
you guys.
leaving.
Yeah, no worries. Thank you
so
guys so
much.
much for coming, and
I'll get
I
started
appreciate
reading this.
it.
We'll all
Thank
read
you.
it.
I hope you enjoy.
How old are you?
I'm 30,
You're 30.
so I've been working on writing since I was 13, so 17 years.
Yeah. To Samantha, my daughter.
Okay. Is there something you want me to say specifically?
You can take your book and put your parents on theirs. I'll just do
And just, I guess, about maybe how your
I'll be
generation,
there on my.
part of your generation, females, I hope that you continue to, that we continue
Yeah.
to inspire each other.
Yeah, perfect.
And then if you'll sign it, that'll be.
Yeah, for sure. No.
Thanks. Yes, page, if I each one.
Yeah, for sure. Did you?
I've got one you
Go.
bookmarked.
Okay,
Okay,
perfect.
so I go to my bank account, right?
Yes.
I haven't done enough of
Yeah.
that.
I know.
And you maybe have other people to talk to.
Oh,
No.
You did very well.
oh, thank you.
Yes, it's nerve-wracking at the best of times.
Yeah. Yeah, and once I start doing more of these, it was nice that I pretty much know everyone that came today, so that helps. So,
Well,
yeah.
I'm really, really proud. Yeah, I can't believe it when
Yeah.
you posted this. Really,
Yeah.
like to think of your age and already what you've accomplished, and I know you just newly married and you just had a baby.
Yeah, it's been a whirlwind year this year for sure. 'Cause I definitely, like, when I decided to publish, I didn't think I was pregnant. And then like a month after I was like, Kate, we're doing it. It was like, okay.
I must have. I'll sit down, I'll send it. You
No
can talk
worries.
with somebody.
Yeah,
if you
no
want.
worries.
And how much is it?
25.
Okay.
Yeah, for
Thanks.
the salary, for sure.
And how is your little girl?